Welcome to Mastermind Conversations, a Pro Insights podcast, powered by Geek in New York, where we don't just talk, we geek it. We break down complex topics, research from trusted sources, and bring your expert insights, real-life stories, and actionable tips, all in a clear and engaging way. So get ready, it's time to geek it with Mastermind Conversations.
Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the very interesting world of executive protection in 2025. And you know what's really fascinating about this topic is just how much is changing so rapidly. So we're going to be looking at, like, how do you even choose the right company in this environment? And of course, a big shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Stone Security Services. They're a top-tier firm here in New York. They've got former NYPD, Secret Service, you know, the real deal. So they're a great example of kind of what to look for, but we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah, you know, it is interesting. We always think of executive protection as something that's for, like, celebrities or, you know, super high-profile CEOs. But the reality is, you know, as the world is changing, we're seeing that the need for personal security is becoming much broader.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like we live in this hyper-connected world where threats can come from anywhere. You know, it's not just physical threats like crime, social unrest. It's the digital stuff too, you know, cyber attacks, data breaches, all of that.
And it's crazy how much all of this intersects. Like, you look at something like the Boston Marathon bombing, which was actually partially funded through credit card fraud. It just shows you how something that seems so unrelated can actually rip about and have these huge security implications.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that, you know, vulnerability exists everywhere, even in places you wouldn't expect. Like, you remember that story about Matt Homan, the Wired reporter? Had his entire digital life wiped out in minutes just because of a single vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. The Hone case is a classic. I mean, it just goes to show you how interconnected our lives are and how quickly things can really unravel. And you think about executives, right? They hold so much sensitive information. They face a lot of unique risks. This idea of interconnectedness just creates this whole new layer of vulnerability.
So for anyone listening right now who's thinking, like, okay, maybe this is something I should be considering, where do you even begin? Like, what are the key factors you should even be looking for in a company?
Well, first and foremost, you want a company with elite training and experience.
Right.
I mean, think about it like this. If you needed surgery, you wouldn't just pick a doctor who'd watched a couple of YouTube videos. You want somebody who's got years of training, experience with complex procedures, a proven track record, right?
Right. You want the best of the best. You want somebody who's not just reacting to things, but they're proactive, anticipating threats and mitigating those risks before they even become a problem.
Exactly. And that's where you really need to be digging into their background. Are they coming from elite agencies, right? NYPD, Secret Service? Do they have experience with handling those high-pressure situations, both physical and digital? These are the kinds of questions you got to be asking.
And don't forget about certifications. Things like the CPP, the Certified Protection Professional, or the APP, the Associate Protection Professional from ASIS, the American Society for Industrial Security. Those really demonstrate, you know, a commitment to professional standards and practices.
Absolutely. Those are like a seal of approval, right? Shows that this company, their personnel, have met this rigorous industry standard and they really know what they're doing. But it's not all about, you know, brawn and certifications.
That's right. Executive protection goes way beyond just physical security. You have to have discretion, confidentiality. That's just as important.
Yeah, imagine this, right? You're trusting this company with so much sensitive information about your life, your business, your family. You know, a breach of trust like that could be devastating. You're putting yourself and everyone you care about at risk.
It's like that whole case with patients like me. They thought patient data was totally anonymized, but it ended up getting re-identified and sold. Like, it's scary to think that even in this digital age, privacy is that fragile.
Yeah, it really underscores how important it is to vet a company's reputation for confidentiality. Look for a company that's got a proven track record of maintaining discretion. They need to understand the weight of what it means to protect your privacy.
So it really is about balance then, finding that company that's tough and capable, right? But they're also discreet and trustworthy, someone who really understands the nuance of security in this interconnected world. What else should we be thinking about here?
Well, threat assessment and risk mitigation are absolutely critical. I mean, this is where a good executive protection company really shines. They're not just reacting to threats. They are actively working to identify and mitigate them before they even become an issue.
So they're playing chess, essentially, always thinking a few steps ahead to anticipate dangers and then come up with a countermeasure.
Precisely. It's a proactive approach. They're thoroughly analyzing your specific risks. It could be related to your industry, your location, your public profile, even your personal life.
So it's about understanding your unique vulnerabilities and building a security plan that really addresses those very specific concerns, right?
Absolutely. And this is another area where asking the right questions is key. How are they conducting those threat assessments? Are they using specialized software or tools to analyze potential risks? What kind of strategies do they use to actually mitigate those risks?
Those are great questions to ask. And I think this is also a good time to bring up technology, especially since it's evolving so rapidly.
Oh, absolutely. Technology, it's really a game changer for executive protection. The best firms out there are really harnessing all these cutting-edge advancements to enhance those security measures and stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine like AI-powered surveillance, drone detection, advanced cybersecurity measures. That's got to be becoming like standard issue in their toolkit, right?
Exactly. You got to have that multi-layered security approach. Think of it like having a really sophisticated alarm system for your entire life, where technology is playing this key role: early detection, real-time monitoring, that proactive threat response.
So instead of just waiting for something to happen and reacting, you can actually use technology to almost anticipate and prevent those threats.
Precisely. For instance, AI, it can analyze massive amounts of data and actually start to identify patterns, anomalies that could point to a potential threat. So you can take this much more proactive and personalized approach to security.
That's incredible. It's almost like having this virtual bodyguard constantly analyzing your surroundings and flagging any potential risks. But with all this technology, I mean, how do you even ensure that privacy and confidentiality are maintained?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and it's something you absolutely should be asking any potential security firm. Make sure you're looking for companies that are really transparent about their data security practices. They got to have strong protocols in place to safeguard your information.
So it's kind of about finding that balance then, right? Between leveraging this awesome technology to enhance your security, but also knowing that you're not compromising your privacy in the process.
Exactly. And speaking of technology, it's also changing how security firms are approaching things like emergency response and custom security plans.
Okay, let's talk about that. So we've talked about how, no two security threats are alike. So I'm guessing those response plans really have to be tailored to each individual's needs and circumstances.
Absolutely. Every client is different, and their security plan should reflect that. It can't be this one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It has to be custom designed, something that really takes into account your lifestyle, your risk profile, your specific concerns.
So what does that look like in practice? What kind of elements would be included in a customized security plan?
Well, a good security plan is definitely going to include, a well-rehearsed emergency response protocol. This is going to cover a wide range of scenarios, right? Everything from medical emergencies to targeted attacks to natural disasters.
It's about being prepared for anything, having that clear plan of action so everyone knows what to do, even under pressure in a crisis.
Exactly, and that's why regular training and drills are so important. You want a company that's constantly refining those response strategies and making sure their team is ready to handle whatever comes their way.
And how does customization play into this whole emergency response protocol?
So it's about tailoring the response to your specific needs and vulnerabilities, right? So for example, if you're really concerned about your children's safety, the plan might include some specialized training for nannies or close protection officers, people who are really skilled in child protection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it really does sound like that plan needs to be, constantly evolving and adapting based on, individual circumstances. So it's not just having this generic playbook. It's about creating this dynamic and personalized approach to security.
Precisely. And that customization goes way beyond just emergency response. You're also talking about things like travel security, home security, cyber security, even reputation management.
Wow. So it really is a holistic approach, covering every aspect of your life and those potential vulnerabilities.
It is. And another thing to remember is that a good security plan is a living document. It's not something you create once and just forget about. It has to be reviewed regularly, updated, adapted as your circumstances change and as those new threats emerge.
So it's really an ongoing partnership between you and that security firm, working together to make sure you feel safe and secure in this ever-changing world.
You got it. And that brings us back to why it's so important to choose the right company from the start. One that's got the experience, the expertise, and really that commitment to personalized service to create a truly effective strategy.
Okay, so we covered a ton of information here. We talked about why executive protection is so crucial in 2025, the key things to keep in mind when you're picking a company, and how technology is going to shape, the future of security. What are some specific questions you should be asking these potential firms to make sure they really measure up? Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? Like, we've talked about all these qualities of a great executive protection company, but how do you actually vet these companies? Like, what are some specific questions you should be asking?
You're right. It's time to kind of put all this together and, give you some actionable steps. So let's say you're actually sitting down with a potential firm. Where do you even start?
Well, I would imagine starting with, their experience and their expertise would be a good place to begin.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to really dig into their background. Ask about their team's training. What kind of specialized skills do they have? Are they experts in cybersecurity, counter surveillance, close protection, the whole range?
So it's really about, understanding like the depth of their knowledge, making sure they can actually handle the really complex modern security landscape.
Exactly. And, don't just take their word for it. Ask for some examples. Have they worked with any high-profile clients before? What kind of situations have they successfully handled in the past?
Yeah, like those real-world examples, those really speak volumes. They show that they can, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And I think this is where those certifications we talked about earlier really come in handy.
For sure. Asking about those certifications like the CPP or the APP from ASIS, that shows that you're really serious about quality and professionalism. You understand that those industry standards are important.
Yeah, it's like checking the credentials of any professional you would hire, right? Whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, you want to know that they've met certain standards.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've looked into their expertise. Now let's shift gears to discretion and confidentiality.
And this is where those stories about data breaches and privacy violations, those are really unnerving. You want to be absolutely sure that whoever you choose really understands the importance of protecting your information.
You're 100% right. Ask them about their specific policies. How do they handle sensitive data? What do they do to ensure client privacy? What kind of measures do they have in place to prevent leaks or breaches?
But it's not just about asking the questions right. It's about how they answer. Do they seem like they're trying to avoid the question, or are they downplaying the importance of confidentiality?
Yeah, that's a good point. Trust your gut on this one. If something feels off, it probably is. A really reputable firm will be totally open and transparent. They'll welcome those tough questions.
Okay, good advice. So we've talked about expertise and confidentiality. What else should we be looking into?
All right, so next up, you want to think about threat assessment and risk mitigation. Ask them about their process for identifying those potential threats and how they develop strategies to address them.
So this is where you really get to see their approach, right? How do they analyze risk? How do they actually create those custom security plans?
Exactly. You want to see that they're taking a proactive and individualized approach to this. Are they using any specialized software or tools for threat assessment? How do they tailor those plans to fit each client's specific needs?
And I think this is also a good time to bring up technology again. We talked about, AI-powered surveillance, cybersecurity, all those advancements. How are they integrating that into their strategies?
Absolutely. Ask about the specific technologies they use and how those actually enhance their services. Do they have experience with drone detection systems? Do they offer cybersecurity assessments or training for their clients?
Yeah, you want to make sure they're not falling behind, right? They got to be leveraging the latest tech to provide that really comprehensive protection.
Right. And while we're talking about technology, don't forget about communication. Ask them about their protocols. How will they stay in touch with you if there is a security event? Do they have backups, redundant systems in place?
Yeah, communication is key, right? Especially in a crisis situation, you got to be able to rely on that. So what about emergency response protocols? What are some key questions we should ask about that?
So here's where you really want to get down to the specifics. Ask them how they handle different scenarios. What's their evacuation plan? What about medical emergencies? How do they coordinate with, local law enforcement if it comes to that?
Yeah, it's like they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You need to know they've thought this through and they have a solid plan in place.
Exactly. And remember those practice drills we were talking about? Ask them how often they do those. What do they involve? That's a sign that they're really serious about preparedness and that they're always trying to refine those strategies.
And I think this is a good place to touch on that customization piece again. How do they actually tailor their approach to your specific lifestyle, your needs?
For sure. Ask them about how they involve their clients in the process. And, do they do a thorough lifestyle assessment? Do they consider any specific concerns or vulnerabilities you might have?
So it always circles back to that personalized approach, making sure the plan really fits you. And we have covered so much today. Any last words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Choosing an executive protection company is not a small decision. Take your time, do your research, ask the right questions. You're not just hiring a company, you're trusting them with your safety and peace of mind.
Really well said. And for those listening who are maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed, remember, you don't have to go through this alone. There are experts out there like Stone Security Services who can help you through this. and, help you create a security plan that actually meets your needs.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we've given our listeners a really solid understanding of how to choose the right executive protection company in 2025.
We've really dug into the world of security threats, how to evaluate a company, and the key questions to ask to make sure you're making the best decision for you. Remember, in this day and age, being proactive about your security, that's more important than ever. Stay safe out there, and until next time, keep diving deep.
That's a wrap for this episode of Mastermind Conversations, a Pro Insights podcast powered by Geek in New York, where we don't just talk, we geek it. We hope you gain valuable insights, learn something new, and are ready to apply it in business and life. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps us bring you even more great content. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and always geek it.